And I'll wait till it turns 01 and then I'll start. Hey, Jackie. Hi, Marissa. Okay, so we're 4:01. There's not a ton on here, but a bunch of people get back to me that just to send them the recording. So I'll send it to everyone later tonight. So there's only a handful of people here. So I'm just going to talk through the stuff and then all of you can ask questions and hopefully you end up asking some questions that help with others. Oh, shoot. I forgot to tell DA, don't bother.
Let me just go yell next door.
I'll tell him there. So DA, I apologize. I meant to send you a note today. You're welcome to stay on it, but with the regulations that are already in place with football, I don't think today will bring you any purpose.
All right. Thanks for the heads up. Have fun, guys.
Okay, cheers. Okay, so I'll get right to what I think are probably going to be some questions and then we'll take them. So I guess first of all is why is this happening? Like, why did this list come out? So the rationale is, I would say really the directors, the OUA, it's all in the same spirit as all of us as coaches. We all just want to play. So through the last few months, there's decisions that get made, things that are talked about. What can we do to convince, you know, the leadership, the university presidents, the province that we're doing our part? So one of the things that came up that they thought would made sense was to manage how many people attended events, with the assumption that less people would give less potential for transmission. Whether that's right or not, who knows? We can debate that, but that's not really for this conversation. So the thought is why send more people than we need to at events? Reality is some teams are very efficient, but the other side of it is some teams aren't. We have some programs that maybe 20 play that have traditions of sending 35, and it's just, and then we have other ones that are, it's just a different culture. And I've learned a lot over the last few years in this role on just how different sports work. And I'd say in all scenarios, it's probably good rationale, but is it in the middle of the pandemic? So that's why it's happening. The numbers that are there are intended for the competitive space. That varies so much from sport to sport. But if we use the simple side, which the easiest might be a soccer game. So the sideline around the bench where is part of the game. Someone who's not involved in that would be in the bleachers. We're not really looking for the gray area. Well, what about if they're standing in the end zone and they're talking to them? Like it's trying to make it cut and dry to say, this is what all teams are allowed to have. So it's an equal playing field around their competitive space. So those are the numbers that came out. So then the question started with us, which would be, well, this number that's capped at my program doesn't allow me to bring a statistician, or doesn't allow me to bring someone who does video, or I usually bring some of my extra players so they can, their first year who aren't making the lineup, who can see and watch it. So basically what we're messaging is that those are the numbers. They're not going to change for the competitive space. I'll give women's rugby is probably a good example. They have a game in U of T. They have to take a bus to go down. They've asked to bring some players that are above and beyond the numbers. Those players, through talking to U of T, are going to need to buy a ticket. So they're going to travel on the bus. They're not going to head to the competitive space. They're going to get a ticket to go into the game because that's the visiting program's hosting protocol. They're going to watch, they'll experience it, but they will not be with the team. So we haven't broken any rules. So the other challenge that goes with this is there's not a consistent approach across the league for hosting protocol. As an example, I know this one because I'm in the middle of it. So we're hosting Brock next Thursday, a week tomorrow, in men's hockey. We have a rule where we're not having any fans for exhibition because we're indoors and we're just having trouble staffing with the number of employees we have. So that means Brock will not be allowed to bring more than their designated amount because we don't have, as the visitors, we're not in a position to manage in an exhibition game anyone beyond. So there's a couple of examples from women's rugby going to an outdoor space with Toronto's protocol, coming to an indoor exhibition space, which will be different than an indoor league play space. So we're prepared to allow you to have more than those numbers on your bus or on your vehicles, as long as it doesn't add costs. So for example, you had a bus and you wanted to bring enough healthy scratches or healthy non-dress athletes that it meant another bus and cost another $1,000. Obviously we need to talk about that because that's not a very smart fiscal decision. That we don't think that's the case in any of our sports, but that was some of the stuff we had discussions on. So that's, I think, all I really had that I thought I would then just take questions. Or Laura, maybe if you're around this more than any of us, maybe you want to jump in and add something.
Yeah. I was just going to say that we've been trying to collect other teams' visiting guides. It's a slow process. A lot of schools are only sending it out 48 hours before the event. So unfortunately, we don't just have one big Dropbox where every school can plop their guides in that we can pull from to answer any questions. But we are trying to put together our own kind of spreadsheet, I guess, that summarizes rules in terms of what to do with people who are not fully vaccinated if they're traveling to a venue, what to do in terms of, like Brian said, the roster sizes and what is allowed in the field of play, outside the field of play. Do they need to buy tickets? Can they be in a designated area behind the bench? And all of that should be captured in other schools' visiting guides for each sport. We just unfortunately don't have every school's guide yet. So between Donna and I, we're trying to gather all that information. And then if you guys do have questions, we should be able to find it for you. But it's a slow process at the moment because not everyone has their guides done.
And the guides are adjusting to each sport. So the expectation is that a visiting guide, for example, in our institution, is created for soccer, is created for swimming, is created for hockey, is created for anytime we host anything. The guide is supposed to be specific to that. So there'd be some general things that are the same, but then there's supposed to be specific information. So it's as you can well imagine, it's a ton of additional work to try to support our programs at the level you feel you should be supported. So there's just so much more stuff just to give out the current regular production that we're used to doing. But we're working on it. Trust me, there's lots of hours being put in to try to get things as organized as they can. But like Laura said, it's slow moving. So why don't we have questions and we'll see where that goes.
Brian, I have a question. Can the athlete numbers and the staff numbers be interchangeable? So for me, I'm allowed to have 16 athletes, but if I were to only have 12, can I have more staff than 3?
Yeah, so my understanding is yes, based on the discussions that the combined number I'm not looking at the chart right now, but I think it's the second column, maybe it's the third column. That is the number that you can work with and interchange it. So, and the truth is, like, we're not having someone at the door with a ticket, with a counter like at Costco coming off the bus, and I'm sure no one else is. This is an honor system, if you will, and basically a way for us to try to manage how many we're sending, keep consistency. So if you're supposed to send whoever it is, a team's supposed to spend 25, well, the other team can only have 25. So we don't have geez, they got to have 50 and we only had 25. We're trying to build consistency, trying to manage the spread. So, do our part. But yes, you can, back to your question, that was asked the other day in a director's meeting, and I'll get back to you if it isn't right, but 99% sure the answer was you'd stick with that number and you could go up or down a little bit as long as your capacity of people are that number combined.
Okay, great, thanks.
Yes, Brian, I was gonna ask similar because we're actually supposed to go to U of T and they were wondering the same thing, where I have less girls than the number, and would I be able to put an extra boy in instead there? Because the number in the second column says 41.
I don't
So they
remember
were
off
wondering that.
hand, Jackie, is swimming combined together or is it split males and females on the chart?
Okay, on the rules and regulations, it says 36, 18, 18, but then when you go into team delegation, it just says 41.
Yeah, that may be a discussion with U of T. Like the other side that was the spirit of a lot of the conversations is consistency amongst the opportunity. So if it's just you and U of T having a meet or
Yeah,
then my guess is as long as they're happy and you're happy, then there's not any issues.
okay,
But we can ask for clarity on that as well if you think it's needed. But if you're talking with U of T and everyone's on the same page, I can't see that being a problem.
okay, okay.
I will be
And
back.
don't waste time doing pool spectators, because on the other side, Swim Ontario says we can't have any spectators.
Okay. There you go. Other questions? I know there's been a couple that are specific to sports. And I know Jackie, you had one that Chris Gilbert's working on. I don't know if we've had an answer yet, but he's been working on that. Anyone else have any other kind of general questions? And then specific ones it's probably best to take offline, but if someone has one now, you can obviously ask it. Okay, so basically what needs to happen then, if you're traveling, is that through us, but you talking to the other team's coaches can always be helpful to determine whether they have a place or what is the expectation of anyone beyond the number. So if your number is, if we use Jackie's 41, but she wants to bring 45, what do those four do? And again, it could change at Laurier or U of T or Guelph or how we host. And that's been accepted, that the host institutions protocols, meaning the university regulations, not just the athletic department, the university regulations overrides anything. So that's why we've landed where we've had some athletes. Football is a good example because they're going in league sport now. Bird had some players that could play week 1 at home because of our rules, couldn't play week 2 at Laurier because of their rules, could play week 3 because of the next rules. Like, so we're in the middle of that life, unfortunately. And so we will have to spend a bit of time just getting those answers before you travel. If you hit the number, so if your numbers, if we stick with the 41 number or less, then there's less need of that. It's really if you're looking to bring more. And we're not trying, we don't want to, like, we know what's going to happen if we reduce numbers is we're going to not take student trainers. We're not going to take a statistician. We're not going to take video people. Like, we're not trying to limit what you do. We're just, the spirit is just trying to manage and follow the protocols and not have too many people just hanging around spaces. And I think it makes sense, even though it's just another level of admin that's added to us all, that it feels, painful because we've had so much stuff added over the last year. Okay. All right. Well, that was it. A quick meeting, but we'll send out the recording. If you think of something after, send us a note. We're fully, like, when I say we, like, go through Chris, Gilbert, Lauren, or I is the best way. We'll bring Laura in with her team from a double vax side. And then if there's other big picture questions that we can't answer, then we'll bring it up the food chain. But you can just come to whoever you normally go to, because Chris, Lauren, and I talk way too much. So you come to one of the three of us and we'll get the message. All right. Good luck for those that are competing and good luck for those training. Cheers. Laura, are you still there? You hear me?